a.m. after the big party night here at CHI, and that we'll maybe chat about that a wee bit later in the talk. I'm delighted to be here today presenting on behalf of the team. We're all here except for Barry Brown, who we've left back in Stockholm. Some might say, but he's actually looking after a new baby boy. So what we're going to look at today is a compendium study. It's actually a journal paper in Tokai, and it's reporting on a large video data collection which we gathered in 2014, more than 170 hours of video of mobile phone usage. And what we want to try to do is shift or to reconceptualize how we think about text messaging from being a tool for distributed communication to also being an important and valuable part of how we produce our ongoing sociality and relationships. And to help to do that, the paper itself presents 4 core aspects of text usage, which we found in the video data, and they're listed here. And today I'm only going to look at 2 of those, and that will be using text messages as a resource for face-to-face conversation, and also the composition or writing text messages with people who are there co-present with you. So first of all, this explosion of text messaging has not come without its detractors, and there's you may have caught some of the recent media coverage about phubbing. It was a bit of a new word to me, but apparently it came around in 2014, but it seems to be back in the news again, and it's been revived for the job of alarming us about the potential harm that the mobile device might be doing for us. And just thinking about last night's parties, I just wanted to ask anyone, did you get phubbed last night? Is this something that you recognise? Or even worse, were you a phubber? But what we want to do is actually look at what's happening when somebody is texting on their phone. So let me introduce first of all the data. We worked with 15 participants that were recruited through social media and Mechanical Turk. So they're located in the US, Sweden and UK. And we asked them to run a recording app on their iPhone for around 7 days. And as a result, we've gathered 170 hours of phone usage. And these are screenshots of how the app looked on the participant's phone, and the app itself would record everything that was done on the phone screen, but also captured the ambient audio going on around the phone, so talk and sound that would be going on around, and help to embed or to set the activity that we could see happening on screen. So this big corpus of video data we had to tackle somehow, and we broadly categorised it, first of all, by apps used, activity, or whether we could hear other people around the phone, indicating that there was conversation going on while the phone was being used. But what is clear from our data is that mobile phone is incredibly varied. I'm sure that comes as no surprise to anyone. But despite the diminution of phone calls, there were only 5% of activity involving phone calls, we still categorised over 40% of the activity, the recorded activity, in the bucket of communication, and that most of that was actually mediated through text messaging and email. So this was kind of intriguing for us and led us to investigate in more depth the phenomenon of collaborative texting, and by that we mean text messaging while you're in the company of others. And what we saw in the data is, and what we can report, is that text messaging is becoming far more nuanced, both socially and technically. And what do we mean by that exactly? Well, the humble text has acquired this newfound significance and functionality through apps like WhatsApp, WeChat, Viber, and Messenger, and so on. And I don't need to tell you that, but perhaps it's notable that it's still a relatively new phenomenon, that messages can contain anything from images, audio, and so on. And moreover, those messages can be persistent, or they can be ephemeral and disappear, and they can even be anonymous. So let's just dive in straight away and have a look at some of the data. This would be the clip that we talk about in terms of using text messages as a resource for conversational topic with others who are co-present.
We?
What's that?
We?
We what?
You said we.
Oh, we!
Oh my god.
I'm like...
Aunt Darlene wants us to move to Bakersfield. You're too far away. To which I would have to say something to the effect of, well, you haven't seen me in 38 years.
So to help unpack what was going on in this clip, we look to Bacton's discussion of reported speech, which goes beyond the focus on talk that quotes earlier talk, is part of a theory of how words and text actually obtain their meaning, and how through dialogue with past events and past discussion, meaning is built up both individually and collectively. So in terms of meanings in the messages, the mobile phone itself provides a platform and a tool for aggregating multiple different messages and in new media in one place. And unlike ephemeral reported speech, which is gone, the messages are saved and become persistent potentially, and might be referred to again. And there was concern that this might detrimentally affect people's ability to adaptively remember things, to be able to gloss over bad memories and be able to reformulate how they think about events that have passed. However, studies have shown that this is not the case, and actually our data shows that people don't report verbatim what happened in the messages. And if we think about our participant there in his retelling of Aunt Darlene's message, he reshaped it in order to suit his stance about his relationship both with his aunt, his slightly distant aunt, and with his partner who was in the room and he was speaking to. And the next clip I'd like to look at is talking about the composition of text messages. And in the paper, I would send you to the paper, there is a long clip that we've collected, but it was highly sensitive, so we thought that today I would bring another clip to share to show people working together to compose a message. And I'll let this run now.
Maybe what is it saying then?
This guy forgot his glasses. This guy
Ding.
I'm glad you could handle everyone. I know what you mean by feeling out of place. We're definitely the party. Yes, we were.
Can we say that?
Yes. Oh. This might be too much.
What?
I'd be like, so, when do we go to Dave & Buster's?
Oh my gosh, yes, I'm saying it. So, Renique.
No, you have to do like spaces too.
Okay, so.
So, and then.
Period.
Yeah, and then do Renique.
That's what I was doing.
And then do like return like 3 or 4 times. Go like down, make it epic. There you go.
When are we going
Do a winky face after
to
too.
Dave and Buster's? I love it. Good?
Yes. Hope so, because I just said it.
So these two participants are working together, and they're friends, they're chums. And we can have a look at this message and recognise that, you know, humour in the workplace is an easily accessed way of getting along, getting through the day. And in actual fact, the message has been typed by the work colleague on the other person's phone. So it would seem that they've been out the night before, perhaps, with another friend, and they're chatting about that. And it's striking, perhaps, how intimate the interaction is, that it's someone else's phone, that she's given her phone to her colleague to let her type a message on her behalf. And we can speculate perhaps Renique has just joined the company, perhaps, and in any case, these 3 friends are in the early stages of socialising together, and the message exchange helps to contribute to the developing friendship by confirming they all had fun the night before and alluding to future nights out together. And while the message appears to be one-to-one, there are people listening in there in the co-located setting, and the third person is listening at the other end of the phone, as it were. So, with the 4 aspects of text messaging, we saw that users appropriate, share, and talk about saved messages in ways that were probably not originally anticipated, and certainly not designed for, and we would propose that they could be better supported in the design of the applications. And some suggestions that we talk about in the paper are bookmarking important sections of messages, use of summarisation tools, and adding more metadata to the saved conversations in order to make it easier for users to reread and review and perhaps share messages after the event. And I think the key point we would say is that these messages do have a high social value, and that the design of the applications should provide more navigation tools, more landmarks and signposts to enhance the user's ability to go back in again and play with the messages. So what we can say is that texting can be, and it is done collaboratively, including those who are present in face-to-face conversations. So then, in conclusion, I suggest that our corpus presents a distinctive view of device use in device locations, including workplaces, bars, transport, shopping malls, and so on. And we want to expand and shift the debate from the general potential of harm that mobile technology can do, and look at the detail of actually what is it that people are doing on their phone while they're engaged in text messaging. We suggest that video is an essential resource for accessing the moment-by-moment shaping of the interaction. Video data allows us to focus attention on the context of use. Put simply, video data gives us access to the content and the emotion and the experience of writing and receiving messages. We presented four core aspects of text message activity used to bring the message that's on the phone into the face-to-face conversation that's happening in the co-located setting. And those were the messages as a topic for resource, a resource for topic in conversation, and for the production of social relationships, the use of images and text messages in face-to-face conversation, and also in the collaborative composition of text messages. And we argue that text communication applications should be viewed as a social and historical application, and that text messages and their consumption and production can help to produce sociality and relationships, and their consumption and production are historical and social artefacts when brought into face-to-face conversation. To wrap up, I think what our data shows is that the mobile phone user can and does bring those co-present into their text messaging activity. So I would suggest that to consider this, if someone appears to be phubbing you, do bear in mind that it's not the fault of the technology. Don't blame the poor old inanimate phone. It's just people being rude. Thank you, and I'll take questions.
Good morning, Marina Kogan, University of New Mexico. Thank you for the talk. I was wondering if your data at all speaks to how conversations might be different when there's co-presence and collaboration on text messages. Are they different conversations in terms of structure, length? I'm just curious about conversational dynamics.
We didn't run. Are you suggesting that we didn't run like a control, for example, to see how conversations would happen. So no, we were interested to understand how do people actually produce conversation. Mm-hmm. Oh, sorry. Yeah, we were interested to learn how do people actually work with the phone as part of. And what we did discover is that people gracefully interweave the mobile phone and they just drop it naturally if something is more pressing in the here and now. That's certainly what we saw. Mm-hmm. So I couldn't make that comparative comment if that's.
I didn't necessarily mean control experiment or anything like that, but just if you had some inklings, because I think it's such an interesting direction to go with.
Well, you know what, I wouldn't. What we saw was people having fun with the phone in conversation, bringing in Instagram or messages that people have said, and then also using the phone to write important messages. And I would send you to the paper the composition message. It's an important message that the participants writing, and she's struggling to write it and find the appropriate tone, so their friend is helping with that. So yeah, these are the kind of things that we were interested in, did see.
Thank you.
Hi. Claudio from IBM Research. Hi.
Yes.
I would say when the beginning of cell phones, people were really concerned about in social settings, people taking calls during the bar. There was a whole social outcry against, and now that seems to be moving to text, right? But in some ways, I think it is an improvement. It's better than people taking call during in the middle of a meal. But I wonder if you see this use of phone as an interrupter. I mean, speech as interrupter, and not only text as a way of interrupting what people are doing.
Text messages interrupting people's conversation.
Interrupting socializing. Do
you know, it's actually, we have written another paper, and we do have one participant who insists on interrupting a conversation, a story being told, in order to get the storyteller's phone number. And it was, we wrote about it in a previous paper because it was so unusual, actually. We didn't see mobile phones interrupting conversation. What we see is people just drop the phone, that were not literally, you know, they just put it to one side, and then on occasion they'll bring it in and use it as part of the conversation. So it was unusual when we saw that kind of the interrupting that you're referring to happen.